Welcome to Scrapbooking Made Simple. Today we are going to play with our gel plates and pigment powders. Now any pigment powders that you have at home will work for this technique. Just use the colours that work for the photos that you want to use, or you just want to have a play and a practice with this technique. So to start with, we're going to add a nice even coat of white paint, this acrylic paint, onto our gel plate, and then sprinkle over the pigment powders. The amount of what you want to put on is up to you. I found that this amount was too little for the size of this plate. I probably needed to add a bit more of the pigment powders on there. Once you have added the colour on, grabbing a spray bottle with water and spritz all of the pigment powder. It will spray everywhere, so please make sure that you have your craft desk covered and anything important protected. So once you are ready, you can pull a print with some paper or printer paper or scrapbook paper, whatever you want to be using, and then pick up that second ghost print. So I love that it's a beautiful pastel colour on the print, but I wanted to go a little bit darker, a little deeper in the colour, to see if I could achieve that. Now using the white paint, it does give you that pastel effect. You still get the really awesome shine and shimmer from the pigment powders. However, you could possibly try using a soft gel medium instead of the white paint, and then you'd get more of a vibrant pigment, like a vibrant colour, hopefully. I haven't tried that yet, but we could try that together. So just adding the acrylic paint to your gel plate again as your base, and then adding the pigment powder, sprinkling it all over the plate, and then spritzing with water. And you want to make sure that you are spritzing all of the bits of the pigment powder, so it will be a little sloshy, but if you've got a good base of paint underneath, it's not going to do what it did in that first print that I did. As we pull this print up, you get nice and messy, beautiful blues and yellows, and then picking up the ghost print. These dry just amazing. I love using them on the layout. So pretty. Okay, so we've got still a bit left, so I'm going to pick up the excess just with another print that I have already picked up on, just adding to it, so layering it over the top, and then cleaning the plate. So once I've cleaned up a little bit, we're going to work on adding some different colours. So doing the same technique again, spraying over the white paint, nice even coat over the gel plate, and then adding the pigment powders. So I think what I found was that I had a lot of pigment left on my plate, so I've added some paint over the top to pick up what was left. So it's quite light, but a good pickup. Now this is where I I paused it to pick up some things, and then I didn't pause it, and I do apologize. So what I had done was picked up some flowers and some doilies and some lace, and I had picked up, like, printed on those items, on those use it up items with the pigment powder. So instead of just the papers, I've used up bits and pieces that I had in my stash, and unfortunately didn't get that on camera, so I do apologize. The next thing I'm going to do is just freehand some vines, leaves, stems, whatever you want to call them. I was just having fun making up little leafy shapes. So not being too particular, trying something a little different here. So just have fun with it. Sort of doodle those shapes, whatever you want to work with. And then we're going to fussy cut them out and use them on the layout. So a great use of using a gel pen and having fun with things, even if you don't feel like you're a great drawer, which is like myself. I had a lot of fun creating these shapes, and it was fun being able to just let go and not stress so much about being perfect. But creating really fun elements. Now, if you had a stamp that was similar to this, or a stamp that you'd like to use, you could stamp over the image stays on over the print, and you could use that, fussy cut that out and use that on your layout. It's completely up to you. So this is all about use it up is what I called this layout. So things that I found in my stash, the doily, the lace, the flower, just having a bit of fun with making the most of being able to print on absolutely anything, because that mica powder soaks into whatever you are printing on, which is a really fun way of using up your stash, and especially using the pigment powders that you may have purchased in the past and not really known what to do with, or extending the use of them by adding them onto a gel plate. So make sure you have some fun with this step. Don't stress too much about being perfect. And please go ahead and stamp if you've got a perfect image that you would like to use, instead of drawing with freehand. But don't get too stressed about being perfect, because it's not about being perfect. It's about using it up and creating a beautiful, fun layout that is hopefully stress-free. A little messy though, so you'll see my hands are quite blue. So if you are worried about that, you can have gloves on, but it does come straight off either with an alcohol-based wipe or some hand sanitizer. It'll come straight off your hands. You will not have stained hands for the rest of the day. So I ended up drawing 3 of these freehand vine leaves, stems, whatever you want to call them. But I ended up just fussy cutting 2 and using 2 on the layout. And the idea being just to use up what I had to create a cluster on the left hand side. So everyone's cluster is going to look a little different, being that you'll have different things in your stash, but the general idea of this layout is to have a cluster of things that you have printed on, and it could just be a cluster of die cut shapes, or stamped images, or you could do some book text and some lace if you have some, and the doily, or you could just do a cluster of flowers. So whatever you have to work with will look really good. So you want to use up the cluster, you want to use about a third a third of the layout on the left hand side, a third in width, and then a third in height. So it uses up a good portion of the layout but doesn't overtake it. And then you could add any diamantes or anything to add a bit of extra shimmer and shine if you wanted to, or if you're happy with just the way it is, then go with it. I loved the way this layout turned out. I was really happy with the muted tones of, or the pastel tones of, the pigment powders. it was good fun just letting things go and enjoying the process rather than trying to get too hung up on the details. So remember to have fun, practice and play with the pigment powders, mix your colours, and then you can work out which one of your prints that you want to use for your photo mats and to do a title. Now, I freehand drew my title and then fussy cut the images out. I drew it a couple of times to work out the style that I wanted to use, but feel free to stamp the image or use a pre-printed sentiment or title, or you could use a die cut. It's completely up to you. Now, the size of the photo mats I used was 2 at 6.25 inches by 4.25. So that way I could use a full 6x4 photo. So I chose to put them on the horizontal, but it depends on the photos that you have for the page as to what orientation you would like to use. So cutting those at 6.25 by 4.25. Having 2 of those, and you can really see that shimmer coming through on the video from the pigment powders. So just working out the orientation, and then it took me a little while to figure out like where I wanted the the photo mats to be, if they were going to be too high or too low or right in the middle, which is where they ended up. So just once you place them, have a play around with how the placement of the photo mats and what's going to work for you. You may want to leave a bit of extra room for journaling, or you may just want to fill them up, or you could add an extra photo mat if you wanted to as well. So really just make it your own. And from the extras that I had used out, I decided to add a bit more to the page, but felt that I was kind of overdoing it a little bit, trying to put too much onto the page. So cut it back with just adding something extra to the top. So that filled in that space, but didn't overwhelm the page either. See, it's not quite right. Too much going on. Then too much at the bottom, because you've got all of that cluster on the left hand side. Don't really need the extra pieces at the bottom, but I liked having the extra bits at the top. So I pulled out the bottom ones and then just left the ones at the top. So the last thing that we need to do is to create the title and then stick everything down. So grab your gel pens, be brave, be bold, have a go. If you don't like it, then you can scrap it, stamp it out or die cut it. But try something new, try something that's going to challenge yourself. So I started out with creating very blocky letters, which I just didn't feel suited the page because of the way that I freehanded the leaf stem spine things that I drew. So I ended up making some bubble letters, which I liked a lot better. So I used Joy as my title for this page, but go ahead and use whatever's going to work with the photos that you have chosen to add to this layout. So a little bit of fussy cutting here, but you don't have to do it if you don't want to. I just really enjoyed it, creating this layout. So once the title is cut out and everything is stuck down, the last thing to do is to add some photos, and then you have completed your layout using the pigment powders and gel plates. We hope you have enjoyed creating this layout, and give yourself permission to let go and have fun, practice and play, and have some joy. See you next time.